We'll see you next year. Hi, it's an honor to come here today to talk about the history of jazz in Fredonia. My name is Carl Bolter. I was the director of the School of Music from 2003 to 2015. And I'm a composer with more than a passing interest in jazz. For me, jazz is a way of thinking musically that expands our understanding of melody, harmony, rhythm, gesture, and form. In my retirement, I started the Fredonia Jazz Society, which created a jazz club in the village of Fredonia and has presented 3 multi-day music festivals. A primary aim of the organization has been to bring the university's expertise into the community, instead of expecting the community to come onto campus, which I long felt had been a perceived barrier for many people. Back when I was first considering coming to Fredonia in 2003, my professional colleagues told me that this is a great music school, great music education school. My daughter, who was 12 at the time, told me that it's an important jazz school. I didn't want to disagree with her, but looking at the course catalog, I didn't see much evidence of her position. It was after I got here that I learned what she knew, and I'm not sure how she knew what she knew. Since the 1930s, jazz has existed on campus as a student organization. In the 1950s, talent flowed to the college, attracted by the outstanding music education program. These students also had a vision of their own. Through the existing organization, the Fredonia Jazz Workshop, they experimented with writing, arranging, and they knew they had something special. On their own initiative, they entered competitions. In '61, I'm told they entered the Notre Dame Festival and won top honors. Then over the next decade or more, they repeatedly won awards at Notre Dame, Villanova, Quinnipiac, and Mobile. That was then. This is now. Before I retired, the music faculty agreed to finally offer a major in jazz, and a search committee commenced for a faculty leader for the program. There's no doubt in my mind that the faculty support for jazz over the years, from people like Linda Phillips, Harry Jacobson, and the venerable Bruce Johnstone, is what made this transition possible. With new leadership from Nick Weiser and his supportive colleagues, Jazz at Fredonia is again winning awards, year after year, this time from Downbeat. Jazz no longer sits on the sidelines of the School of Music, and the university is finally recognizing this aspect of its musical heritage. Thank you for being here today. Joining us is Richard Nunemaker, John Hasselback, Craig Faddy, Ian Liedtke, Sam Wozniak, and Maze Drum. Let's start by giving each of you a couple minutes to introduce yourselves, like your name and when you were at Fredonia and what you play, and maybe a nugget or two about your career, past, current, or future. I guess we might start with you, Dick.
Thanks for coming. My name is Richard Nunemaker, class of 1964. I went from Fredonia to the University of Louisville, played with the Louisville Orchestra, and then had a 50-year career in Houston with the Houston Symphony Orchestra. As a clarinetist, bass clarinet, and saxophone. When I came here in 1960, there was a big influx of students came into the college right after the Korean War. They came in from the Army and they came here on the GI Bill. And the band that year was put together by Steve Willisinski, otherwise known as Steve Willis, trumpet player. And it had some amazing talent in there. Lincoln Millman playing bass, Don Menza playing tenor saxophone, Tony Carreri on trumpet, Tito Puente, remember, playing lead trumpet. They did their own arrangements, and they rehearsed in the music building at night after the building closed. And in those days, there were no faculty advisors. The students put these things together. They funded their own arrangements and their own travels. Band went to Notre Dame Festival, The big contender at that time was North Texas State. Fredonia came in, everybody said, "Who's Fredonia?" And they came out with first prize in band, first prize in arrangements, and first prize in tenor saxophone, Don Menza, first prize in alto saxophone, Tony Carreri. It was amazing. From that time on, North Texas and the rest of the country knew who Fredonia was, and I think that was the start of the really serious jazz education program in Fredonia. Yeah.
And my daughter knew about it.
Pardon me?
And my daughter knew about it.
Yes, she did. Good for her.
I don't know how, but that's pretty good.
Yeah. John?
Okay, am I on here?
You're on. Yeah.
Okay. John Hasselbeck, class of '67. I came here in '63, boy out of New York City. I followed my brother George, who had been here 2 years before me, and he witnessed what Dick was describing out at Notre Dame. Were you along with him?
No, I didn't.
They cut classes and got in a big load of trouble, but it was well worth it by the description that my brother had talked about. It was wonderful. And so when I came, it hadn't changed. The idea of practicing after hours was still in force, and I'm a piano player, and I played in 1963 through 1967, and the band leader at that time was Chuck Lawrence, who unfortunately just passed away here about 3 months ago. But that was a great time for me, and there was no way to study jazz here. I mean, that was you were here for music education, and you had your private teacher for your legitimate work. So it was an opportunity for me to get on the other side of the musical coin, so to speak. So what's happened for me? When I left here, I went to East Aurora, New York, where I met my wife here. We married and we raised 3 children. I taught at East Aurora Public School System for 33 years, and in between, I would play Pops concerts at the Buffalo Philharmonic, and very often could go on the road and perform with vocal groups for freshmen, 4 aces, 4 lads. Actually, I'm the last 4 lad as a singer. And so the study here, helped hone that opportunity for me to do what I did. And I'd like to commend the administration for turning the coin here and bringing jazz into, so to speak, it's in the curriculum, And I was with Bruce here. Yes, he was very instrumental in making that happen. Great guy. I don't know Nick, because once in a while we'll trade a gig back and forth, because we're piano players, we don't see each other, but I understand he's really phenomenal with what he's doing here. So that's a little of my story. I have a picture of that band from 1961 if you want to see it. So see me after. Craig?
Hi, I'm Craig Fatty. I was at Fredonia from 70 to 74. And I have to say the greatest experience I had at Fredonia was in the jazz ensemble. And we'll get into that later, a little bit about that stuff. But when I came to Fredonia, I was a trumpet major, and I walked in, and I had played in my dad's big band. I had played in our school stage band. That's what they called it at that time. They didn't call it a big band or a jazz band. And when I got here, there was a guy named Gary Daly who was a senior student, and he had the jazz workshop running like a top, like a clock. It was great. They had, obviously, the Fredonia Jazz Ensemble. They had a second band. They had a third band. So there were 3 big bands of students, all student run. Okay? The one thing we were, the workshop and the jazz ensemble, it was a club in the Student Government Association. So we got to rehearse here, but we were low man on the totem pole. You know, as long as nobody else wanted to rehearse, you could maybe get a room. But what they did is they backed us to the hilt, the student government did. We were able to bring in and have concerts with Buddy Rich, Stan Kenton, Don Ellis. They were really the big, Maynard Ferguson, obviously. They were the big touring bands at the time, along with Basie and Kenton. But we were able to go to the student government and say, here's a date we'd like to bring in a band. The student government would vote on it, and we'd have the band. We also got to have artists in residence. And my first 2 years, 3 years actually, they had the Kenton band for 2 days. And the Kenton band would come and do clinics and then put on a concert. I love the Kenton band. My taste was a little bit different. I was able to get the Thad Jones Mel Lewis band to come here for 2 days and give concerts and give clinics to the guys and rehearse our band. And it was phenomenal. It was phenomenal to be able to do that. But I'm glad to see that it has progressed even farther. We would go on tour, and we would set the whole tour up. It would be before school started, during the winter session, we would contact high schools all along the New York State Thruway from here to Long Island. Do you want to have the Fredonia Jazz Ensemble give a clinic and give a concert at your school? And we'd go out for 10 days. We were a road band, which was kind of cool. But it was a great experience. And I went to, after Fredonia, I taught for 30-some years at St. Francis High School, and here's one of my students. But it was great. It was great, so that's enough time for me.
My name is Ian Liedtke. I graduated here in 2015. When I was here, there wasn't a jazz program here yet. I had found out after I graduated that it was approved and it was going to become a thing. But you know, it was a really inspiring thing for me to be here. And honestly, if it wasn't for Mr. Faddy, I don't know if I would have come here. The joy he had when I got accepted was something that really struck home with me. And I thought, this is something that is going to really, this had an impact on me for sure. And I learned more about the history, knowing that it started in the 1930s. And I would look up and read about these different bands that would come here and the people that they brought here to Fredonia. And you know, it was still called FJE at the time, and I was a part of the band for all 4 years. My final year, I was voted as the president of the organization, so I would go to the student government meetings that Mr. Faddy was talking about and would try to get funding for things. I think one of my favorite memories was we would have lessons with Bruce Johnstone, and we would go through the archives of all the sheet music that we had, and we would just flip through trying to organize everything. And it was piles and piles of music that we would either see North Texas University written on the corner of it that we got somehow, we would have that. And I think one of the greatest accomplishments I was able to bring to Fredonia was my senior year. We brought in Corey Henry, who was one of the men at Snarky Puppy, which is a very big modern jazz fusion band. And having him here, opening a lot of eyes to what jazz can really do for the modern musician was really important to me. And currently I'm a freelance musician in the Buffalo area. I play jazz kind of all over Buffalo. I help out with a lot of different schools for their concerts. I play for different musicals in the area, including Shays. And I'm just loving it, and I honestly thank Fredonia a lot for that experience.
My name is Maze Piper Drum. I am a senior this year, and I'm a double major in jazz studies and composition. I actually came in as a composition major, but one of the deciding factors as to why I came to Fredonia was I got a lesson with Dr. Weiser as like a kind of like an informal meeting and like tour of things, and I immediately like the energy of the school and the way that he talked about music and getting to see him play and hearing about the legacy of the program before there was a program just really kind of like sold it for me. I was like, yep, okay, I'm gonna go to Fredonia. I'm a pianist, and I've gotten to be in the big bands for basically my whole time here, which was really, has been and still is a really incredible experience for me as well. It's really cool to hear about how the student run side of things like transforming into the faculty run side of things, and just getting to see kind of the legacy that preceded it. It's really, really interesting to me. Being an FJO, my first semester here really kind of switched something in my brain and made me get really, really serious about jazz and really just fall in love with the art form. And I added the jazz major soon after that. I'm also the vice president of the Fredonia Jazz Workshop, because now that we have curricular big bands, it's kind of shifted into a more of a jam-oriented sort of thing. So we'll do jam sessions in town at Domus Fair, like the Fredonia Jazz Society does, kind of on a student level more. We do like bi-monthly meetings and whatnot, and we bring in guest artists. And just this semester, we got to bring in Alan Ferber, who is one of the world-renowned trombonists based out of New York City right now, who writes a lot of stuff for nonet and smaller kind of mixed ensembles, which is just like fantastic, because the Flextet, which is our second big band, is kind of centered around that idea, and having in one of the greatest current composers and arrangers of that kind of music here was just like a real joy and a real treat. I gig as much as I can. I try to get up to Buffalo. I play around here, and I just try to surround myself with music, and at Fredonia it's really easy. Yeah.
I'm Sam Wozniak. I'm also a senior here, and I'm a performance major, and I'm a jazz major, and I play the trombone. I grew up at West Point, the military academy. Both my parents were musicians, and through high school, that's when I started playing jazz in my high school jazz band, and I really came to love it, and I had friends who were really into jazz and learning more about that, and it was great. And I got to play in the all-state ensemble my senior year also, and that's when I like really figured out that this is like something I think I really like. And I got to meet with Dr. Weiser over Zoom, and he was talking about this burgeoning program that had just been recognized by Downbeat, and that it was new, but it was like really, you know, getting ahead of steam here. And I said that's something I think I really want to be a part of. And it's just been all gas since I got here. It's so much fun. I've been in the Flextet all 4 years. I was in the FJO for a semester also, and just the music that we play is so rich, and it's so musical, and it's so awesome. And learning about the history of jazz here at Fredonia starting in the 30s, and just reading up about like the guests that you guys have brought in over the years. It was amazing to see, you know, Thad Jones, Stan Kenton, all those guys. I was like, wow, they came here, and that's it's so humbling to like have this you know, history and all this part of jazz at Fredonia on the stage right now. It's a big moment, and I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, Sam, a good segue, because what I'm thinking about is, well, in the description of this event, it says, jazz has been part of Fredonia for 100 years. Well, not quite, but 90, I'd say. But still, it's been a long time. And big things change over that period of time. Jazz isn't what it was. Jazz isn't now what it was then, but yet it is. And the seeds of what jazz has become were planted but have evolved and blossomed and changed and all that kind of stuff. So I guess my question is, and this is for anybody who wants to answer it, how do you feel about your particular part of that 90-year history? Where does your role fit into it, and how do you feel about the complexity of the whole at this point?
I could, if you would like to.
I'm going to sort of diverse a little bit about that, but I'm going to address your question. And I'm going to talk a little bit like an 83-year-old and go back.
Okay.
And go back. One of the best kept secrets in the country is the amount of talent in Western New York and Buffalo in particular. And that talent has always come down to Fredonia. When I was growing up in the 50s, I was just amazed at the amount of talent. And I was very fortunate. I grew up with 1 foot in the classical field and 1 foot in jazz. And when I got here to Fredonia, I was totally focused on being a classical clarinet player, getting my degree, and I was going to go into a symphony orchestra. But I heard this big band, and I went nuts. I mean, I followed that band for a year, and then I was playing lead tenor in the second year of that band. And that experience made me, I feel, like a really more welded, more well-rounded musician, and it led to a career. I did 3.5 summers. I don't know if anybody out there remembers Melody Fair. It was the Summer Stock Theater in North Tonawanda. We did New York shows, and we did the original shows that ran 3.5 hours, and also special guests, like, Nat King Cole and so forth. But I was able to do that because of what I learned here and the people I worked with at Fredonia. And I mean, I'm just thrilled to see what's happened over the years since I've been gone and now that I'm back. And I think it's just a major contribution to the whole history, the musical history of Western New York, Buffalo, and in particular, Fredonia.
I personally, in regards to how our part as new students fits into the legacy here, I think that it's really, the fact that we have a program now is really, really incredible, and just opens so many more pathways that you all didn't have, having to rehearse after hours and hope you could find a room, and it's if you can't, oh, too bad. So the fact that we're recognized and gaining steam is really important. But I think that in order to really honor the legacy of those that came before us, we can't slack off as students just because it's a little easier for us. We gotta put in the same kind of work and chase the same kind of sound, and that just level of pure inspiration and dedication in everything that we do. Even though we have teachers to help us now, it's that should be all the more reason to go even farther and keep putting in that kind of work. So I feel in order, our place is to try to bring in the same kind of raw dedication that had you all making so many waves across the country, even without being recognized by the school at that point in time.
Very good. Yes.
So I'm thinking, when I was here, we have to really, and I think Craig will say that, and you will as well, Ted Peterson, who was my theory teacher, was a trombonist, and he played at Radio City for years, and his chops mysteriously disappeared on him when he was here teaching theory, and he was very supportive. He would give the guys charts, from the Kendor publishing company. And so I like to remember Ted Peterson in a big way. I remember a few times Dick Page was a voice teacher, tenor, and at one point before he taught, he professionally had worked, and he would once in a while grab me into his studio and put up an old fake book and say, "Hey, Johnny, come on, play this for me," and he'd sing, and we'd have some fun with Dick Page. So that was great. Oh yeah, just the idea that I could cut my teeth playing in a big band led to all of these wonderful things of playing at the Buffalo Philharmonic while I was teaching school in East Aurora. I would get phone calls in the middle of the school day with the contractor from the Philharmonic. I never kept track of all of the famous folks that I played for there, but it was really an amazing experience, and it wouldn't have happened, probably not, had I not had the chance to play. And we rehearsed in that little room here, I think there was a chorus room. Yeah. And once in a while down in 162 or 3.
Yeah.
And I was just telling Dick earlier, there was a janitor here, Walt was his name. And after hours, Walt was the guy that would unlock the door and say, "Now look, guys, leave it like you found it, don't smoke, and we could rehearse." So, although it looked like it was closed up, the opportunity was here, and I'm so glad to hear these guys talk about how much it's opened up. John Stone and Weiser and folks, are bringing it along, and that's great.
I would say I came here at a very great time. There were so many good students, especially ones who were really, really passionate about jazz. And even though I came here in 2011 and it was still a very hardened classical school, there was still some bias against those who wanted to play other genres. We didn't let it deter us from wanting to put on concerts. We still had 3 big bands as well. I think it was called the Weapons of Jazz Destruction was the name of one of the bands.
Oh, yes.
And oh, you did. But one thing we brought back was we went to the Notre Dame Festival my sophomore year, and myself, I didn't mention this, I'm a piano player. I won best accompanist of a singer during that festival, and the singer that I accompanied won best singing performance as well during that. And even during that time, there were only a few classes that really taught jazz, and it was normally Bruce Johnstone who taught them. But my junior year, myself and Alec Doobie, who was a student here at the time, me and him decided we wanted to approach the faculty about teaching a jazz improv class. And so for my last 2 years here, we were able to do that, which was just a fantastic way to bring all the students together and be able to play jazz. And I think that was a huge deal to kind of let the faculty know, like, we are serious about this and we take it seriously. And I think it came to a culmination when my junior year we were also able to bring, wasn't necessarily as the faculty, brought in Arturo Sandoval, which was a really cool experience to have him, and then having Corey Henry in the following year to bring in kind of sort of a modern style of jazz was very important, and very lucky to have played with such great musicians during my years.
To give you kind of an idea of how things really changed, we started to have a reunion concert of the FJE in 2003. And we would bring, and I got a call from one of the guys, "Hey, you wanna?" I go, "Yeah, sure, I'll do it." This is never gonna happen, Sure enough, it did. So the next year would have been my year of running the band 30 years later. So I said, I'll do it. And then after that, nobody wanted to do it, so the guys go, "Will you do it?" So I did it for the next 20 years. But I want to say, we were driven in a lot of ways to do it, because when we started that around 2000, 2001, there were kids that were playing in some of the bands that were playing with a paper bag over their head because they were told by the faculty, you can't, if you're student teaching, you can't play in that extracurricular ensemble. So these kids are sitting in the band with a paper bag with 2 holes over their mouth, playing saxophone because they were told you can't do this if you're student teaching. You can't divide your time to come back and rehearse but they did, and that was drive, so to speak. That was drive.
I have always noticed that the very best students in this program have always been people who want to do it, come hell or high water.
Right, for sure.
That's where it all
Without
comes
a
from.
doubt.
Yeah. I brought a couple of little clips along, musical clips. One of them comes from the 1961 band that Dick was so nice to share with me. It's actually introduced by one of the band members, Steve Wilczynski, right?
He was a leader.
And he's talking about the school and who they are and where they're from, and it's kind of humorous. And then they get into this arrangement of all the things you are that just blasts the roof off. So listen to this for a second.
I think we'd like to, at this time, clear up a little discrepancy about exactly where the State University of New York is. We explained at the last conference, but still people are asking me, does that have anything to do with Cornell? And is that part of NYU? Is that any part of Juilliard? Well, no, it's not. It's a small school. It's about 1,000 students. It's part of the State University of New York, which is divided into about 14 schools. It's about 80 miles south of Buffalo, New York. And it's right on Lake Erie. The school doesn't give credit for jazz. As a matter of fact, it doesn't even sanction jazz in the school. It was only a very short while ago that we were even allowed to rehearse on the campus. However, it does have some very wonderful courses. We're all majors in music education except for a couple of bands, boys in the band. One of our tenor saxophone players is a social studies major. That was Robert Appel. But they do have some very wonderful courses, as I said. And one of the courses that I took there was a course in 18th century counterpoint. We thought we'd make use of this 18th century counterpoint and write a chart. The chart is based on the changes to all the things you are, since they do fit in very well. If you notice in this chart, you won't hear any suspensions that aren't prepared.
I was there for most of the rehearsals when they rehearsed that piece. Let me tell you, it was pretty exciting. And those guys rehearsed every note. I mean, nothing ever got by in the rehearsals. It was pretty darn amazing.
That's great. So in the 60s and 70s, the student-led groups won a lot of awards. What did winning awards mean to the students then? And what did the winning of awards mean to the School of Music then? What perspective can you share?
Well, I know when I was luckily the director of the band in 73, 74, and we went to the Quinnipiac Jazz Festival, and Ithaca College was there, Duquesne was there, Syracuse, there were a couple other schools, quite a few other schools. And we fortunately won, you know, it was amazing. And when we got back, I got a letter from the School of Music didn't say a word. Nothing was said from the School of Music, but the president of the university, Dallas Beal, sent me a letter congratulating us and thanking us for the notoriety we brought to Fredonia. But the School of Music didn't say anything.
Did you tell the School of Music that you won?
Beg your pardon?
Did you tell the School of Music that you won?
Well, they knew the student newspaper had pictures all over everything. I mean, they did. They had it all over. And one thing about, you're talking about composition. That was one thing when I was a student here. Student composition was huge. Guys were writing stuff all the time. And when we went to Quinnipiac, of course, we had pro charts, but we had student charts. And I really thought our best charts were our student charts. So for the semifinals, that's the way it went. You compete in the semifinals. We played pro charts. We played some from Buddy Rich, some from Kenton, thing from Basie and stuff. And I saved the ones that I wanted, the 4 charts, for the finals. And when they give out the awards, usually what they do so that they can present them that night, they base them on the semifinals. So the best student composition went to some other group. Well, we did charts by Bob Schott, by Howie Shear, by Emil Palami, and a freshman named Paul Holdebaum. And afterwards, Bill Finnegan was one of the judges. I don't know if you know who he is. He wrote for Tommy Dorsey. He wrote for Benny Goodman. They had their own band, Sauter Finnegan Band. He was ace #1 arranger writer. And he came up to me and he ran up to me and he said, I have to tell you, those are some of the best student charts I've ever heard. And I feel bad that we had to award it to somebody else. Fredonia should have got that because of those guys. And they just did it on their own. In fact, Paul Holdebaum, and that gives you a little indication of what happened with the school, Paul was only here as a freshman because he transferred to North Texas State so he could study film scoring. And graduated from there and since worked on Broadway as a conductor and an arranger. But I mean, if we'd have had those courses here, maybe Paul would have graduated from Fredonia. But it was great. It was great.
So I have another clip to share. So as I said, sorry, I forgot that I was doing this. So I have another clip to share. As I said, the recent bands have been winning awards as well. The Flextet, which we have some members of here. I asked Nick Weiser to share some clips with me. So I did, I made an excerpt of one of the selections. It's from Wynton Marsalis's Democracy Suite called All for One. So it's written by Wynton Marsalis and played by Fredonia's Sextet, and they won the Dalbeat Award in part because of this arrangement. That's only about half of it, so I had to do some cutting there. So, Sam, you were the trombonist in that, weren't you?
I was, yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, some of the question, as I asked before, so winning awards means something, and of course it's situational, what it means, and of course it's also personal. So, what does it mean to the current students to be winning awards like this?
I think the awards are really. I think the program we're just really trying to. We're just trying to be like the best musicians we can, and we have this just like this like raw dedication to the music, and we really want to be great, and we want to go out and we want to I think change lives with our music. And when you get all these people in a room that are ready to play this fantastic music, I think the awards kind of just come. And I mean, to be honest, it does. It's not like we're trying to play for a downbeat award, and we're not trying to like win this award. We're just trying to put out a fantastic product, and we want to. I think we're trying to make people feel great with our music, and I think we do a really good job of that. And the awards are kind of just. It tells us that we are doing that, and it's really great to be recognized by Downbeat year after year. You hear, you guys went to these festivals and you're winning first prize, and you have, best soloists and best accompanist and things like that. And, Downbeat's recognizing someone like Matt Incontro, who was best soloist for Notoriety, I think, last year. He's
the soloist on that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Matt Incontro was also soloing on that one with me. It's so much fun to continue this like success of Fredonia music and Fredonia jazz, and when we're successful over and over and again, that's excellence. And I think we're really excellent musicians, and I think we have a really excellent program here. So.
Agreed. Anybody else on these questions?
Personally, as I wasn't in the group that year, but I remember I was in the FJO, and I think we were going to play after them. So I was standing like right back there, like peering through the glass, and I was watching Sam. And he was a freshman in that, by the way, and I was a freshman too. And getting to like, COVID had such a negative impact on my high school's jazz program. And I was really kind of starting to develop a love for this music at that time in my life, and it felt like it was cut short in a way. And then when I got here, I was like, I auditioned for the jazz programs on a whim because again, I wasn't a jazz major coming in. And then it was like, I remember standing backstage and being like, wow, I have never heard music like this played by my friends in front of me. And it was just immediately like a high that I couldn't stop chasing. I was like, I need to do this for the rest of my life. And then when like Dr. Weiser announces like, we won a downbeat for that, we were recognized by this like incredible jazz magazine. It's like, my first thought was like, yeah, I mean, yeah, I was at the concert, of course we did. That like that energy in that room, it's like it seriously just changed like who I am as a musician and a person. So I think that it's one thing to be a part of the band and experience it in the room, but to have like kind of like written proof of like an establishment that's like known for knowing what they're doing in this field, to be like, yeah, we heard that too, that was really, really good. It's like, okay, cool, awesome. I don't know, it was just, it's really meaningful, the fast progress that our department is making here, and I think if we keep pursuing that, it's only going up, so, yeah.
Very good. Yeah, I think I should add that the winning of awards is in some ways fluff, because as you say, it's about the music. You do the music as well as you can, and the awards has come. But of course, it's rewarding to get an award. It's it kind of proof that you are doing what you think you're doing. And I think it's important to the people you're working with. There's no doubt that in the early years, the work that the students were doing in FJW was making an impact on the university. There's no question that winning downbeat awards has an impact on the School of Music and how it views the jazz program. It has made what has been a long pathway to something which is no longer fragile. Where it goes from here is not completely out of control. Times change. Another 25 years, who knows what's going to be happening. But I like to be able to spend a little time talking with you about what you think would be good moves on the part of the School of Music to further the jazz program in the next, say, 10, 20 years. And this is open to anybody who wants to offer a thought.
I think one of the most important things that especially guided us was bringing in as many popular and well-renowned jazz artists as possible, especially the ones that are more on the modern side. One thing that I always felt was we were going through a time where, when I was there in the mid-2010s, there were different forms of jazz that were starting to pop up, like fusion and things that were becoming more into the popular medium, and it wasn't thought of as old people music like it might have been thought of back in the past. It was becoming more popular, and I think bringing in more modern creators and people who are willing to share and talk and run master classes is an extremely important thing. I think it's something that should be looked at. It was certainly looked at in the classical department when I was there. My freshman year, Yo-Yo Ma came to Fredonia. One of the coolest experiences ever to see him.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah, well, just an unbelievable concert too that he put on. And then 2 years later, Arturo came. So it was a very, very eye-opening experience to have those creators there to talk and things like that. And I'd say that would be one move for sure.
Anybody else?
I mean, I think that's especially important to bring in artists, and I think the current the faculty in the School of Music and the Fredonia Jazz Workshop have done a great job so far bringing in guest artists. I mean, we had Alan Ferber just this last month, Nat Cohen last year, Joe Granderson, Troy Roberts, Adam Larson. We've had a ton of great guest artists come in, and they do clinics. They sit in on the jazz improv class that Professor Scazzaro teaches, and that was always a great time. They talk about composition and things like that. It's a very you get the whole experience with these artists, and I think the school is doing a really great job with that. I think bringing in more faculty and more staff, I think, would be fantastic. I think maybe like someone for each instrument would be really fantastic. We had Brendan Lanahan here for 6 months before he won the Airman of Note job. Good job. But other than that, we haven't had like a trombonist on the faculty, which is I think that would be really helpful. Might encourage more jazz trombonists to come to the school too. I think that's something they should consider, is bringing in more faculty, kind of getting all of the instrument groups and maybe a little more writing. I think that'd be great.
To respond to that for a second, I know that faculty lines are hard to get, and one of the things that I'm aware of is people have classical chops and jazz chops, and I think my own personal feeling is those are really great musicians. They see the world broadly, and they can approach it from a musical sense, which is informed by both sides. So yeah, I think my suggestion would be to increase the number of people who actually have that kind of range of skill, so they can do the classical and jazz side and be legitimate in both aspects.
I'll just talk a little bit about the sort of an academic approach, and again, this is my age showing. But I would like to see, not only with Fredonia, but other schools that teach jazz and so forth, spend a lot more time on traditional jazz, going back to the early Dixieland, Louis Armstrong, Sidney Bechet, and actually studying those styles and playing those styles. And another course of study I would like to see is that jazz instrumentalists learn the American songbook and learn how to play a ballad the way a singer would play a ballad. One of my beefs is there's so many great jazz musicians and players coming out of jazz schools, and they play a ballad, and after they play the first chorus, you have no idea what song they're playing. There's so many notes, and the tune escapes because they haven't been taught. That's what I would like to see, and not only here, but at all jazz schools.
So I'm very proud to talk about a grandson, John Hasselbeck III, trumpet player, who earned his doctorate at Eastman, started out at the Hart School of Music, where his mother and father went to school. There, on the faculty, Jackie Byard, pianist, and Jackie McLean, alto saxophone, and many others. And then they would bring in trombone. My son John got to know, J.J. Johnson. I mean, they were pen pals. Curtis Fuller. Yeah, and so that makes a difference. Be interesting to look and see. If I look back, family history, I could say I had a dad who was a saxophone and clarinet player. Yeah, and he played in a band as a youngster. And one of the guys in the band quit the band to go out to work with Frank Sinatra. So, kind of neat. And then along comes me, and then meet my wonderful wife here, and we raised 3 kids. And John Jr., trombonist, is about to retire from the West Seneca schools, but he's very deep into the jazz program there. So, yeah.
He was brothers.
Yeah, he's a wonderful player, yeah. And so, Fredonia kind of, sowed a seed with me and my wife. She's a very talented singer. and so it's kept, generation-wise, it's keeping it going. But you're right, having people on the faculty, you know, just here for a couple of days is great, or for a week or whatever, but if they're here, I think Bruce Johnstone was the first inkling that that would make things work. And they gotta continue that. So if, like you say, if it's a Reed guy, bring somebody in grass. Now, upwards, John 3 is on the faculty at Purchase. And one of his mentors is still there, is John Faddis.
Oh, I have a fatter story.
Yeah.
When we brought in Thad Jones, Mel Lewis, John Faddis, fantastic trumpet player, he was the lead trumpet player. He was 19. All 4 of the guys in the FJE were older than John Faddis. That's crazy. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, so, and like a pianist up there, Pete Malin-Burney. And so I know that they have a program there. And so you look around, you look at the other schools, and maybe, you know, by example, you might pick up some, you know, moves. I'm looking at you guys, this is not your gig, right? But it's your students here. But whoever, in the cloud out there, the administrators, they need to think along those lines.
Elliot's adjunct professor, right?
Yeah.
So you got a sax guy right there.
So example, like, you know, I had a wonderful teacher, T. Richard Patterson, for piano. And he was so serious, okay? The time when President Kennedy was shot, the news broke out, and I was ready for my lesson. And I knocked on the door, and I said, I don't think I want to take the lesson today. They just notified us that the president was shot in Dallas. And Patterson was so serious. He says, "That's all right, sir." He says, "Come in." He says, "I'll hear your your technique." And he made me play the lesson. Yeah, even though the news was really not very good. It was a very sad Thanksgiving week when we were here. But there was no one here teaching, you know, jazz piano. So you're lucky you got Nick is here. So that's great. Yeah.
Something that I completely agree with what everybody has said so far, and I'm really lucky that I got to come here at a time where such an incredible pianist is teaching. Something that I'd really like to see the school do is actually something that you guys did a really long time ago. Me and Sam were actually just talking about this, watching looking at old videos and hearing about all these competitions and whatnot. Me and Sam were like, we want to do that. We want to go play competitions. That sounds like so much fun. So I think that, and this could probably also be largely student-led, but some sort of collaborative thing. Getting involved with more competitions and touring, I think, would be really, really cool experience for students. Yeah.
I don't, not to sound, I don't know how to put this. When we were here, what I'd like to see happen is a lot more, as you said, not a lot more, but some more student direction on things. As I said at the beginning, it was the greatest experience for me because as the director of the band and the workshop, you had to pick the repertoire. You had to plan the rehearsals. You had to schedule the rehearsals. You had to sign out the rooms. You had to book the tour. We had to do everything, which I'm not complaining. It was great. It was the greatest learning experience. I learned more that I applied in my band that I had after I got out and my high school job because I had to do it here. I had the opportunity to do it. So if there's a way that aspect can be kind of reintroduced, going along with you said, like a tour. If that could be set up and have it set up by the students. Do you get to pick the repertoire a lot?
Depends. We actually have a few groups that we have student.
The student
ran.
one.
Yeah,
good.
we
Okay,
do that.
great. That's that stuff.
Your point's very well taken. I've always believed in Frank Zappa's mother of invention, necessity, right?
definitely.
So if you wanted to do jazz at that time, it was up to you to create it. And I think that, as you said, a lot of learning happens from being in a position of having to do something.
A lot of responsibility too.
Absolutely. And so for the current students, I think FJE is a gold mine of opportunity. And you're right. I mean, like to a certain extent, the curricular ensembles have taken the steam out of FJE, but it doesn't have to take the steam out of the students' initiative to do great things on their own. And so I think, from my perspective, from what I'm hearing as well, that I think that needs to be incorporated into what the student experience is here. That there's a certain amount of student responsibility to get things done that they want to have done. That takes maturity, musical maturity too. But those students who are going to be ready to take on some initiatives, I'm hoping that the faculty and the School of Music give them the freedom and the license to do so. Do we have any questions from the audience before we wrap this up?
Well, I'd like to make a comment.
That's not a question.
You're wonderful. Do you remember Patty Giraldi?
Yeah.
Our alumni director. Well, anyway, homecoming, when the homecomers came, they brought their band with them and would perform again after so many years. Now, that's gone on for several years now. It was fantastic. And if they don't have it this homecoming, I'm really disappointed, because it was these men, they're all much older now,
Yeah.
but boy.
And that's
when
why
they
we're
all
not
got
here.
together, the old college band that they had here, that they formed here, it was a fantastic concert. I hope that can happen again.
Well, you can answer that. We all got older, and some of us are no longer here.
Yeah.
Time has gone by.
It's hard to put together. I love doing it, for 20 years. I don't know if this doesn't matter. I got a loud voice. I love doing it for 20 years. I love the experience with all the guys, but it just got to be really hard. When you put together a band and your lead trombonist goes, I'm coming from Florida. I'm not sure my doctor will let me fly. That's scary as a leader, And so I don't know if some of the younger guys will pick up and have a band of maybe guys from the 80s or something like that, but I appreciate your comment very much. I mean, we love doing it, and the guys really loved coming back because they love Fredonia. That's why they came back. They love Fredonia. All the guys do.
I agree. They're great concerts. They really were.
If I could actually chime in as part of the Jazz Workshop board now, there's a next semester, the Student Association is trying to get celebrations of Fredonia's, bicentennial anniversary and whatnot. And our club is, half the history, frankly. Like, we've been here for half the time, so we're trying to get together maybe a week of events and bring back some alumni and have maybe more panels like these, performances from old bands, if people can manage to get up here and whatnot. And then maybe close with a current student group or something of that variety. Sorry, I could have phrased that with more tact maybe, I apologize. I didn't mean it like, yes, thank you.
You're cool.
Yeah, thank you. But if that's something that you or any of you are interested in, that is definitely something that our club would love to honor and collaborate on. So, yeah, stay tuned on announcements for that.
Yeah, the School of Music has a lot of alumni,
Yeah.
and it spans many decades. So, yeah, I think to put something together, it's a lot of work.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be very valuable.
We have weekly meetings at my townhouse that go very late into the night, much to the chagrin of our neighbors and our roommates. But we're all dedicated, and we wanna keep the spirit alive. So we've got big plans.
Excellent. Anybody else? I think we need to wrap it up, so that's just fine. So we're going to adjourn here, and there's a concert in this hall at 7 o'clock by the Fredtown Stompers, which is led by alumnus Sean Ebert. Yeah, it's a group that actually focuses on early jazz in Dixieland, and they've been doing it for a long time. They were formed in 2006. So they'll be back in here. Hope you can join us for that concert. I remember the performances at Kaufman's Pub downtown. A lot of fun. I believe we had a trumpet player on the faculty who was named Dave Kozmina. I think he appeared with them now and then. A lot of fun. Join us 7 o'clock here. And thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate it.